Before watching this video, I want you to have two things completed for me. One, have a story that you're going to use this video for. Have it be considered and have the ending thought about. And two, have a pen and paper to write this down. I'm telling you the advice in this video to write the best possible ending for your story will be revolutionary. But for now, have those in mind because take my word, seriously. Let's talk about bad endings. Bad endings are exhausting. I've been seeing a lot of it over my feed in the past year of 2026. I'm grateful that the current story I'm reading, which is a manga series called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Steel Ball Run, is a story I haven't finished yet. But it made me think about the quote that our teachers taught us in elementary school, of which the journey is more important than the destination. It is a valuable quote because I've been seeing that idea thrown around, especially for one of the biggest TV shows right now, that being the indie show, The Amazing Digital Circus. I've already know the ending coming from someone who watches the show on YouTube, but even for someone as a writer like myself to consume media such as books, movies, TV shows, to feel the best possible life I can, I have to bring up that quote once again. I'm gonna be perfectly honest, I hate that quote. The more I genuinely think about it, the more I want to say yes, but the destination is the reason why you're going there in the first place. It's great that you're doing some sort of goal or a story trying to achieve something from point A to point B, but that point B, where we end things, should be just as valuable, if not more, than the journey itself. Going back to the JoJo metaphor, part 3 of JoJo is the story of the Stardust Crusaders, in which they're going back to fight Dio, the main villain from part 1 of JoJo's. And in that, the journey all the way to the end can feel exhausting, but it's pivotal because of the fact that the ending itself is a masterpiece, a gigantic fight between the greatest villain in Dio. That ending is what worked for part 3 of JoJo's. In this video, using that same metaphor, I want to discuss how you as a writer can use your own inspirations, the teachings I'm going to teach you in this video, and all that and more to create the best possible ending you can. Going back to the Digital Circus talk a while ago, I am not the biggest fan of this show, but one thing I've seen online is just how much people hate the ending. It is exhausting because TV shows like The Boys, Digital Circus, and so on have endings that permeate television. They have a feeling of nausea. A great example for people I know is Stranger Things. When I was talking with my friends about it, they discussed the feeling of watching Stranger Things and absolutely hating the way the story was written. Granted, as a writer yourself, the story you're writing is more than likely a book or a kind of medium where it doesn't go on forever, like a TV show. But even so, the ending of whatever medium you're going to create will dictate how people will see your art and your own acts of work. It's important to realize then that as writers, we have to be cautious of ending our story. It is difficult, even for something as big as Stranger Things. The people behind it definitely cared about the characters and the story they're building. So naturally, trying to conclude that is one of the hardest tasks any writer can do, which is why I ask you to have a piece of paper and a fit story in mind. I'm going to spoil one of my books, The Winning Complex. I would say read this book because it is, in my opinion, my best teachings, my best stories, my best theme I could have told as a teenager. But the ending of that story is one that I considered with great caution. I remember writing it back in the winter of 2025 and having so many ideas on how to write it. But one thing I was absolutely clear upon was to trust my own instinct. This is probably the single most important thing you need to understand about an ending. Who the hell cares what the audience is expecting? Let's be honest here. I realize this as an audience member myself, but having empathy for writers of all kind, I've realized that the story that they're telling is their story. You can end your story however you want, no matter what editors, directors, people, even your friends and family say. Do what you believe the ending of the story will be right. In the case of The Winning Complex, it was weird. People told me it was weird to have many characters, especially the central ones, actively live in the end, while killing off, I guess, more fan favorite characters, they said, while reading the story. But to me, that is what exemplified the story's themes, how reality TV can get in the way of real life, and how this mental disconfiguration of karma and trying to do justice in the world ultimately ends with a story that actively shows kindness above all, that shows peace and tranquility above noise, sound, and even money. It's a beautiful story that I've written, and that was the major theme I wanted to discuss in that story. But I don't have all the time in the world to talk about my own story. For your story, you should have understood what the theme was from the very beginning. I discussed this in many videos of mine discussing how to write a book, which you can check out in the playlist after this video, discussing how to write a book. But in summary, the story you are going to write has to have value, a meaning in this day and age. The year is 2026. The world is divided every time I check Twitter, and everything that keeps on popping up on my social media continues to consume and ravage my mind. But I don't want that. As writers, we should be stronger. We should be able to take the negativity of our ending and fuel it towards something greater. Of the 3 books I've written, my second novel had an interesting case where many of my friends and family actively despised the ending because of the way it loops back to the very beginning. I wanted that from the start to portray a feeling of mental decay. It's easy enough to discuss why your ending works, but your ending should be contained in the story at hand. It should be building up to everything you have discussed and told in the story thus far. If you set up points of a character slowly turning good and then eventually turning bad, that is terrible. I want to say that because I've been thinking about Digital Circus recently, and the discussions I've been seeing online using that example compared to the many books of fiction I've read this past year, it is hard to imagine what determines a good resolution, because an ending can be both good and bad. But your story should have a natural conclusion. If the character is slowly turning good, slowly accepting themselves as a person, you should not make them go in the opposite direction to get a point across. It wasn't naturally built. As much as the fan base and audience can argue, once again, it is your story. Realize from the big picture perspective. I can imagine right now you are picturing 2, maybe 3 characters in your story that are actively evolving as people, but over time the resolution for each may turn out different. The original bad guy you were in turned good would have a better resolution had they turned evil, stayed evil, and vice versa. It's all about what theme you're trying to get across in your story. Understand both the theme, the natural conclusion and resolution you're going to achieve, and the biggest one of all, the single most valuable piece of information about an ending, is that it's complete. It is extremely difficult to write an ending, especially even for a smaller film to bigger, large ideas. How you're going to develop a gigantic web of sentences into one big page where everything concludes is hard. When I finished my first book, it was a sigh of relief, but I understood that keeping the story simple felt like I mitigated myself. I restrained myself from what I was able to make. Now currently working on both a short film with my friends as well as my 4th novel, I've come to terms with endings being something that should invoke an emotion, create tension in the air. It can either be good, bad, or bittersweet. Nowadays, I've been seeing so much media talking about the bittersweet ending, or worse yet, a bad outcome. But I 100% believe good endings should exist as well. Good endings are, in my opinion, vastly underutilized, especially for today's day and age. All the popular media you can think of, hell, even albums with a final track to it, the ending of what you've written is often depressing. It's sad. Let's create this emotion that we as authors write to make the audience feel sad but melancholic. It doesn't have to be deep, whatever. It could be a fun ending for all I care. So, for all intents and purposes, consider the big picture once again. Having those web of ideas, what does your spider web look like? Is it a sad, melancholic frown, or is it an optimistic, happy, glad face that will allow you to gradually evolve as a person? There's so many different ways to approach an ending, and having this gift of writing an ending for a story you are truly passionate about is what I believe is the greatest thing you can do as a writer. You've made it this far. The journey to get to this point has already been achieved. And now, even though the journey was fantastic, conclude your destination on a resolution that matters. I'm going to talk about a side tangent here. I don't know if any of you guys know this TV show called Smiling Friends. While the ending was very vague, one note, I want to say that the show ending the way it did was beautiful. I adore when a show has the guts to conclude in the way it does. Some of my favorite novels of this year actually have fantastic endings that feel natural in the way it does. Sometimes it could be just as simple as the story ends, the end, such as Michael Crichton's The Lost World over here, as well as Hernan Diaz's Trust. But other stories have this magic to it. Something such as Lord of the Flies, in which the story involved has a powerful ending, one so crisp, honest, and real. I love when stories understand tension. Tension, above all, is the most important factor of a story. How you're going to evolve the story just from the simple ideas and characters to something so vast and extraordinary is something that I believe only you can do. You've written all these ideas down, which is great. Consider the big picture, look at the theme, think about how the characters' stories should be wrapped, etc. But all I want you to consider now is legacy. What kind of legacy do you want to leave with your story? Because you have the ability to write another and another and another. It doesn't matter if it sells or not. It's realistically about the journey of writing it. It's ironic using that same phrase, journey, destination, because both are equally important when you consider this lens, this perspective that each and every story must conclude and the grand narrative that it does. So once again, I'm telling you to slow down, create the story that you believe would be righteous, and figuratively look at the story you've written. How should the characters end? How should the plots unravel? If you feel your heart racing, energized by the fact that your story is going to be complete, then it's there. If you feel proud, satisfied, and even teary-eyed about the ending you've written, then it's there. We do not want another Game of Thrones ending. We do not want any of the past endings I've seen in this past year of my life, and we want something final. It's okay to accept that a story ends, but that doesn't mean it can't be another one to begin. It doesn't mean that another one won't start immediately or time after will leave us with air. It's about space and density, and the tension you create in the space from where you are in your story now to the ending, I guarantee will take you to the highest step as a writer and an author. Thank you for watching today's video. Use this information wisely to continue inspiring others. This is one of my favorite videos to record thus far of this year, and I hope you use this information wisely to continue being the amazing writers you are. Check out my Instagram down the top link of the description if you want personal help from me to review your ending and even the destination and journey to get there. Along with that, check out my books and other socials down the link of the description or the top comment below. I am Arnel Arcega, and until next time, keep on reading, keep on writing, and take care.